Now, moving swiftly on, it will not have escaped anyone's notice that there are some incredibly important industry initiatives and some great bodies leading those initiatives, looking at the transition towards a more converged TV measurement environment with multiple currencies. And I'm delighted to say that we have 4 luminaries from those organizations joining us now to talk about what they're doing and how it all fits together. So I'd like to ask Kelly, Nathalie, Sean and George to turn on their cameras and microphones, and we'll try and get you all up on screen if we can. I suspect our panel doesn't need very much introduction, but our panel includes Kelly Abcarian, EVP of Measurement and Impact, Advertising and Partnerships at NBCUniversal. Hi, Kelly. Nathalie Bordes, EVP of Measurement for Marketeers at the ANA. Sean Cunningham, President and CEO of the VAB. And last, but by no means least, George Ivie, CEO and Executive Director of the MRC, the Media Rating Council. Hi, everybody, welcome. Let's dive straight in. Nathalie, give us an update on the measurement work that the ANA has been doing during the last 6 to 12 months. What have you been focusing on? What progress have you made during the course of the last 12 months?
Perfect, great. The ANA, together with marketers, with platforms, but also with in an advisory function, the MRC, has actually been on the cross-media measurement quest for a little bit longer. It all started actually on the WFA, ANA and ISBA side, together with some key marketers and also with some key TV executives, all the way in 2018, 2019, so even before I started. The core part is really we are trying to develop an unduplicated reach and frequency measurement framework that allows marketers to answer a very basic and incredibly important question. How many people does my advertising campaign reach and how often? That is the foundation and the basis for many measures. We're going about it in a privacy compliant manner, transparent, and we want to take a first party data approach that allows us an always on solution. We want to go into impression measurement, but we are truly believers and firm advocates for consistency and measurement in the metrics that we're utilizing, not only impressions on and off, but also qualitative dimensions of the measure, where duration is one, completion rates, but also the device type, the screen size that it is exposed to, is the ad impression complete. But also important for us is the content context in such a manner that we want to have the ability to report on it and to provide really a truly transparent measurement framework. So that is what we're up to. We are partnering, and it is really truly an industry initiative because everybody who is here on the screen is actually partnering with us. And that is an important part, because you cannot solve such a complex issue just on your own in a silo. It is marketer-led, and I think the marketers have done a really great job in really coalescing a great industry initiative. Where have we made progress? We have moved out of the pure planning phase into the testing and execution phase. We have a very technical and complex blueprint that we're trying to execute on. That blueprint consists of privacy enhancing technologies. It consists of panel matching infrastructure systems. There are a multitude of components that will need to be tested. We are testing the first set of components at the moment with 2 vendors. VideoAmp and Comscore have joined us in partnering in assessing, is the virtual ID a suitable way for us to derive accurate reach and frequency measurement? That is the first phase of our vid test. There will be future tests coming up with the partners at OpenAP, where we're speccing out really how can that mix and match together with OpenID. How do we derive really accurate reach and frequency measures? The next part that we're working is the panel proposal phase that we're currently working on, because we want to have a panel that is not using, and that's not used in the traditional manner of projecting out user behavior, but rather to calibrate the first party data sets that we're using, and really helping us to generate a really representative model to apply really to all of the ad impressions. That is what we are up to at the moment. It is actually quite exciting how much progress we have been making. We have been in the press quite a bit, and I'm just excited.
Well, and I'm sure the industry shares that excitement. Nathalie, in a sentence, briefly, why did the ANA decide to embark upon this exciting initiative? Did your members feel their needs were not otherwise being met?
Yes, there is a little bit of a challenge in the marketplace, and that is it's a costly measurement gap that we have. We have overexposure in ad frequencies, which is leaving people to use ad blockers or potentially leaning more into ad-free commercial-free streaming services. So that is where the marketers are risking to losing their touch points. And that is really overexposure of advertising is also generating a lot of excess of money that could be redeployed in other marketing opportunities. So these are the two reasons why the marketers were really leaning heavily into it. But also we are at a crossroad in the in the media system, and that is we have a lot of incredible momentum on the media seller side when it comes to measurement. But a lot of those measurement initiatives, and they're important because they're really pushing into innovation, but they're also heavily focused on helping yield management for the individual media sellers. In some cases, they are even leading to walled gardens. We need to break that open, and we need to have transparency.
Okay. Nathalie, thank you so much for that. Let's jump swiftly on. Kelly, NBCU, as we heard from Krishan earlier, is really doubling down and leaning into measurement and evolving measurement. Why? Tell us what you're doing. What progress have you made since you started on this work? Where have you got to?
Sure. Thanks, John, and thanks, CIMM, and Jane. Congrats on an amazing tenure. It's kind of hard to believe that you're moving on, but thank you for all you've done for the industry. You know, look, we know that C3, C7 is coming down, and that is just a short bit away, which means a massive radical transformation is hitting the entire industry when that change happens, and we all need to take a step back and evaluate options to be prepared. This is not a simple change of just a small trend break. This is changing the fundamental way of measuring the impressions across linear, digital, streaming, and all impressions across premium video marketplace. So, you know, that's why we kicked off that massive RFP process, because we felt it was an imperative to take a step back and look at what options are out there to solve for the challenges of cross-platform measurement. And we spent countless hours over the last couple of months really poring over that and produced a lookbook at the end of that road in which to bring the transparency back to the marketplace of how we are approaching evaluating cross-platform currency and bringing that transparency back to advertisers. I think where we're at right now, and I'd love to focus on the optimism, which is, you know, we have seen that cross-platform can be solved and is being solved today. We can now measure the things that matter for advertisers because we're now finally measuring what is supporting and monetizing content today, which is the ads. And all ads across all screens and all ads really fast. And we're moving into a world where ads don't travel with the content. I heard Tal, you know, mention this, and we're seeing that obviously in streaming, but that's going across all screens as we look to bring more capabilities to the marketplace. And we're moving away from a program proxy that is based on an average minute to really daily second-by-second ad reporting, which moves us even more importantly, one step closer to impact. So we're almost through our test and learn of both the Olympics games and Super Bowl games. And I just want to highlight kind of the sheer kind of how we're changing the narrative and really ushering in a new measurement era by being able to measure what matters most to advertisers, the ads. On Super Gold Sunday, when we had both the Super Bowl as well as the Olympics games airing, by measuring the ads, we could share back with our advertisers who participated in one of those events or possibly both, that across that day, NBCU drove 69% share of voice across all ad impressions. You know, today we talk way too much about program ratings, household ratings, share against those things, but that offers no value for an advertiser to translate what is the impact to my business, to my consumer, to who I'm trying to affect. Advertisers don't buy ratings, they buy results. And I think the results from Super Gold Sunday speak for themselves. So I'm really excited about the progress the industry is making in which to really embrace the innovation that's out there that can help us drive better measurement for the future.
Kelly, thank you for that. And the iSpot numbers coming out are certainly a fascinating read. But very, very quickly before we move on to Sean, obviously the other major networks also have measurement initiatives underway and are announcing partnerships. How do you think we should see what you're doing versus what the other major networks are doing? Do they complement one another? Are they duplicative, or just different approaches to solving the same problem?
I mean, I think Sean will speak to this. He's organized quite an amazing task force underneath the VAB to really help bring in best practices, education, sharing, and really creating the momentum across us. And so I'll let Sean take on that question, but we're a member of that VAB task force, and we're absolutely sitting at the table alongside of all of our competitors, because what I will say is measurement is a team sport, and we're here to wear a jersey that helps drive better measurement forward.
Here. So Sean, Kelly's given us the segue.
Sure.
Tell us about the task force and how does it bring together the efforts of Kelly, the ANA, and the other networks?
Sure. I will first tell everyone that I thought this has been a great hour and a half, and I applaud both Jane and John and this elegant transition, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. And we put together the Measurement Innovation Task Force. It was a group of practitioners that we've been working with brilliantly for almost a year, and we just decided to give it a name. And to Kelly's point, we are unified in our need to come together at this critical time on so many issues. Now, how individual networks execute, everyone's going to have their own flavor. I'll take you through just a quick history of sort of how we got here. And fact is that before 2021, agencies, advertisers knew the VAB very well. They knew us as an insights generator. We were generating, insights about everything from streaming to identity to driving outcomes through ad video to multicultural insights. And we were the unified voice of the multi-screen TV business. In March of 2021, we were thrust into essentially a whistleblower role, for lack of a better way of putting it, and we're convinced that we were looking at Nielsen currency that through data and processes was undercounted, and that the market was trading with inaccurate currency. We persisted in this role through a lot of denial, deflection, delay, and had an admission in early May that there was systemic undercounting. And we then authored essentially the documents that led ultimately to the momentum that had the MRC accreditation suspended from the national panel. We thought our work was done here, frankly, and then just 3 weeks ago, there was an announcement of another undercounting error that the marketplace was told was essentially inconsequential, for lack of another way of putting it. We dug in this crew we're talking about 24 practitioners from 17 largest TV companies led by the VAB, and we're able to get out to the marketplace that indeed, no, this second layer of undercounting was substantial, and we're now counting at a clip of over could be as many as 60 billion lost impressions that marketers couldn't take advantage of. I think that the critical things going forward that the task force is focused on is first the acceleration of the competition, and what if we were looking at where we are now versus 3 years ago, I think that we'd all be very impressed that we got to this point where every time we're talking about measurement of audience, we're now talking in minimal 4 provider language, 5 as much as 8 provider language, and that there's so much innovation going on there. Well, the other thing that the Measurement Innovation Task Force is committed to is clarity. We're done with decades of non-disclosure, and we have to move forward in a transparent way and visible way to all involved in the marketplace. We owe it to the advertisers. also believe that we need to accelerate and get a lot more than audience measurement done right. We need to move from a one-dimensional, measurement and currency to we need multi-dimensional measurement. We have to be able to show where are the lifts, where are the outcomes, what drove down, up ROI, how did it work? And I think that, I'm gonna stick to my rallying cry, which is I believe that more progress will be made in the 3 years of 22, 23, and 24 that were made in the 30 before. And I think as my organization continues with those insights, continues our advocacy tirelessly, and with a group of 24 of the best practitioners, we're going to get there.
Sean, thank you so much. Well, I think the three of you have answered my next question, which is how do your various initiatives fit together? So given that, I would love to bring in George from the MRC. George, you've obviously heard some really interesting remarks there. The fact remains that we're heading into an upfront season where we have a range of currency contenders, none of whom are currently MRC accredited. Does accreditation still matter? How is the role of the MRC changing in this very fast changing market we find ourselves in?
John, thank you. Before I answer that question, I did want to echo Kelly's remarks and just say congratulations and offer my deepest thanks to Jane. She's done a fabulous job, and I've very much enjoyed collaborating with Jane over the years. So just wanted to add that. So accreditation is more important than ever, not less important. It's kind of interesting because when the MRC made its decisions last year related to Nielsen, there were a couple of articles published that basically asked the question, does accreditation matter anymore? We don't see those articles anymore today. There's no more such questioning. There were very strong statements of support for MRC made by folks like the ANA and the 4As and others about the importance of accreditation. But beyond that, it's fairly clear in the marketplace that measurement independence really still needs to be independent measurement, and measurement that's MRC audited and accredited to keep trust. And the MRC is the viable multipartite way that was established at the request of the US government to do that. We get into operational details, measurement effectiveness, completeness, fairness. You can't do that as a customer alone. And it's a great piece of work, but the NBC lookbook doesn't do what we do. And it's not represented to do what we do. We're auditing Nielsen, we're auditing ComScore, we've initiated an audit of iSpot occurrence data. We're in active discussions with TV Squared, as well as very recently VideoAmp. But don't forget, we also have accredited organizations like Innovid, Extreme Reach, Hulu, Freewheel for CTV measurement, as well as Double Verify, Mode, Pixelate, Protected Media for CTV verification solutions. So there's a good validated coverage of this new emerging television marketplace. One, as a customer, only needs to seek out vendors who are using marketplace developed standards and definitions to measure. Cross-media solutions are also emerging, and we have our sights on auditing and validating those. Is all of this perfect? No. MRC is continuing to evolve just as the marketplace is. But we're prepared to fulfill our mission. This is a great time to be an MRC member, by the way. You get to see some of these audits. You get to see inside how they work, what the strengths and weaknesses of them are, what their measurements truly mean from a quality and coverage standpoint. But I just will end, accreditation is a very, very important thing in the marketplace today. And we believe sometime in the second half of 2022, we will be seeing accreditation proceedings at companies like iSpot, ComScore, Nielsen, et cetera, where we'll be assessing, reassigning or granting accreditation to TV products again.
And I think as well, having become more closely involved with my CIMM hat on with the MRC, the work you're doing in other areas as well, like identity resolution, data quality, will be hugely important to the industry going forwards. Nathalie, just quickly, because I know from an advertiser point of view, you have very strong views about the importance of accreditation. And then I want to turn and ask Kelly about how accreditation fits with the vendors covered in the lookbook. I know it's a question you did ask. Nathalie, the advertisers are very pro-accreditation, right?
Yes, very much. And there are two parts. There's on the one hand, obviously, the level of transparency and really being clear on understanding what are the pros and cons of each methodology and of each vendor, but also having that reliance that the vendor is truly doing what they're claiming they're doing. That is one aspect. I can also speak from a practitioner role, from a measurement practitioner role, and that is just really critical that you need to have something that helps you understand their methodologies, because more and more we have, oh yeah, that's a proprietary algorithm, that is a proprietary methodology. If I don't have an objective auditing and accreditation process, I will never be able to understand what they're doing and understand really the nuances of each measurement aspect. So marketers are full in on transparency through accreditation.
And Kelly, in the lookbook, which I would recommend that everybody reads, you very explicitly ask all the suppliers whether they have plans to go through an accreditation process. And I'm guessing you see it as something that is an ultimate goal.
Yeah, look, we believe an accreditation process has value. We also agree with George, it needs to evolve. I think if we ask ourselves, are we accrediting the numbers or are we accrediting the process? Which part of the accreditation brings more transparency? I would say with the challenges we've had, it is a little too heavily leaned on process versus numbers. Imagine if we all had a standard error estimate and the sample size associated with it that would be required to be disclosed in every ratings report, like inside the actual report alongside of the numbers, and full transparency. That's radical transparency, by the way. And data sets that would then be statistically validated and have a consistent MRC statistical calculator tied to it. That would be a major, major step for all of us in the right direction. You know, put the accreditation for a second aside. We need that type of radical transparency to make sure that the accuracy of the estimates we're all using today, we can all have confidence and rely on, and not continue to have to try to have introspections after the fact to try to understand what went wrong and what's the confidence level in some of these estimates we're using to make billions of dollars of advertising decisions. And so, you know, I think MRC could be at the forefront of really enforcing that minimum standard, even for non-accredited players. You know, we've already started many of these conversations with the MRC, and we look forward to evolving, you know, that accreditation as we move ahead. And we're continuing to encourage the measurement partners to participate, but we all need to look at what that evolution is next, because what got us here is not what's going to get us to the future.
And Kelly, to be clear, when you talk about a confidence interval, you're talking about a particular set of measurement outputs, whereas George, the MRC process is very much focused on accrediting a product or a measurement solution on an annual basis.
No, let me correct that.
Yeah.
And maybe George can also echo
and then we'll go
my feedback, but I'm specifically talking about the accuracy of the numbers and having disclosures that sit alongside of those numbers that in statistical, you know, standard error language is confidence levels as well as standard errors that are disclosed along with the sample size that went into creating the estimate that was brought forward. So it's that type of radical transparency. It's not about a yearly annual audit. It's about day to day, knowing that the numbers we're all using, we have transparency of how that number has confidence in which to transact billions of dollars underneath.
Okay, George, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I just add a couple of very quick things. One, the ability to calculate standard errors around Nielsen estimates, for example, exists, but it's very crude right now, and it's really lost its usefulness based on the way data is reported today. So there's an initiative at MRC to try to strengthen those standards and do a lot of what Kelly just said and force that into the MRC standards. If you look at everything that's disclosed by measurement services, a lot of it, and even if it's day-to-day, a lot of it's driven by MRC standards. So by altering those standards and requirements, you can radically alter the transparency that accompanies a product. There's one more very important thing to say, and that is when we talk about standard errors and confidence limits, we're talking about probability-based sampling. And a lot of the new processes that we're talking about auditing, confidence limits are really kind of not exactly the way to describe what type of measurement error might exist around those. So this project by MRC is wider than just sampling intervals and statistical standard errors and relative areas. It's about total survey error and making sure we're describing, for example, at other products like ComScore or VideoAmp, how these companies might evolve. They may not be right on with a standard error. They may need other disclosures like coverage, what missingness is in their data, etc., that lead the users of the data to a clear understanding of what error might be in there. And that's what the project is all about.
Well, look, we are running very, very short of time, and I feel this discussion could have gone on for at least 3 or 4 times the amount of time we have for it, unfortunately. If we can keep the panelists to literally 1 sentence each, I'd just love to hear each of you say one thing about what's on your roadmap for the rest of this year, the next big thing we expect to see coming from your organization. Kelly, do you want to kick us off, but strictly 1 sentence?
I mean, we're heading into entirely new measurement era where every second matters. And our goal is to transform this year's upfront to usher in new measurement to focus on advertisers and the ads.
Brilliant. Nathalie, what can we expect to see from the ANA?
For us, it's really launching the integrated end-to-end pilot to really get the system up and running, and then going into the next phase with considering outcome measurements.
Wonderful. Sean, from the VAB, what can we expect to see?
In the immediate future, just getting back to this idea of standard error and, you know, the analysis that we've done, where, you know, currently to be within a standard error of 5%, give or take, for Nielsen, the rating would have to be a 4 or above, which is about 2.2% of the inventory. And that, you know, for right now, 86% of the inventory that's at a 0.7 or below, you need a panel that's probably 4 times the size. So these are the details that have to be disclosed. These are the things that we're going to continue to go after. This is the work that needs to be done. And we're going to, you know, continue to partner that with all of the great insights that marketers depend on us for.
Wonderful. A sentence with some semicolons, perhaps. George, a quick word from the MRC. What can we expect to see this year? Anything we should be looking out for?
Well, we want to get television services and the measurement of video sorted out vis-a-vis accreditation, making progress on audits of large digital platforms, moving numerous standards forward, and addressing variability issues and certain standards modernization efforts at MRC. All of those are on our radar screen for the
wonderful
future.
Thank you so much for 4 of you. I feel like we must organize a longer session because you've got a lot more to say, and Absolutely. You guys are really helping to move the industry forward. So thank you to all of you for your organization's efforts. We hugely appreciate it.